I made my previous 3 videos on Tarantino and the revenge theme before the release of The Hateful Eight in theaters, and if I had known that this film would show a very different take on the revenge theme, I might have waited in order to include it. Now, having seen The Hateful Eight a few times, I think I can add it to the list of films previously discussed. Because even though it does not address revenge as the main theme, it does show that Tarantino has critiqued his previous films somewhat with this one. The Hateful Eight was first conceived as a sequel to Django Unchained called Django in White Hell, though Tarantino decided to discard the character of Django for the character of Major Marquise Warren. This reasoning is that every character in the film is supposed to be despicable in some sense, and the use of Django would mean the audience would immediately identify with him as the hero. Even with the retitling and Tarantino speaking in interviews about the themes of the film prior to release, people were still confused if any of the characters were supposed to have their sympathies. Despite being a western and shot in 70mm and given a roadshow presentation where you got this booklet, most of the film takes place in one room and resembles a play. Many have pointed out that the film follows a structure similar to the novels and plays of Agatha Christie, a distinct contrast to what Tarantino is promising in the opening shots of the film. This is another example of Tarantino's genre bending, with an American Western setting melded with a British cozy mystery and then splattered with cartoonish levels of horror movie blood and gore. What The Hateful Eight ended up resembling is something akin to George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. In the place of the zombies, Tarantino gives us a raging storm outside, but like that film, Tarantino presents a group of characters struggling against each other as a metaphor for the modern state of America. One of the themes that is heavy in The Hateful Eight is law enforcement, and Tarantino himself expressed support for Black Lives Matter before the film opened. The character of John Ruth, called the Hangman, is a bounty hunter who is dedicated to bringing his charges in alive, but throughout the film we see him brutalize his prisoner, Daisy Domergue. This is what got the film the most criticism, but Tarantino shows this brutality in a variety of ways, and while other characters may laugh at it, he makes sure to depict Daisy's injuries realistically, and her as a real person as much as any other character. The film ends with the characters of Marquise Warren and Chris Mannix hanging Daisy to their great satisfaction, but many of the film's harshest critics assume that the audience is supposed to sympathize with them. This perhaps is understandable because of Tarantino's past films, and because Tarantino makes Warren seem to be the moral center of the film by heaping so many racist epithets at him. However, the film itself makes this reading out of line with what Tarantino portrays. The credits play over a statue of Christ's crucifixion, which is perhaps history's most famous example of capital punishment. The intentionality of this is reinforced by the character of Oswaldo Mowbray, who claims to be a hangman. He says what is perhaps the film's single most important line while explaining his role in dispensing justice. As a hangman, he dispenses justice with dispassion. Justice, delivered without dispassion, is in danger of not being justice, he says. This makes the connection between both the hatefulness of the characters and the hatefulness of the current U.S. society and a lack of justice, especially where current law enforcement is concerned. This is at odds with Tarantino's previous portrayals of revenge in some ways, though as I said in those videos, there is a distinctly different take on revenge in all 3 of Tarantino's revenge films. With this film, he seems to have reevaluated his take on this mindset and equated it to the hate that drives the country as a whole. The view is closest to the one he portrays in Kill Bill, which portrays the bride's anger as completely righteous, but her revenge is a cycle that will only perpetuate more revenge and more bloodshed. All the characters are shown to perpetuate hate in some way, even as they are given more noble qualities. John Ruth brings his charges in alive, but this serves as a contrast to his brutal behavior toward Daisy. We sympathize with Major Marquise Warren because of the racism he endures, but we are also told that he was part in slaughtering Native Americans and see him behave in ways that are petty and violent throughout the film. Chris Mannix and General Smithers are both former Confederates who hate and resent blacks. Daisy is a criminal, and all the rest of the characters are not what they seem. We even learn the proprietor of the shop hates Mexicans, even before we learn she's a black woman. On this note, the film's ending is meant to be ironic. Warren and Mannix are bleeding to death after having killed Daisy, and Mannix asks to read Warren's letter from Abraham Lincoln. We've learned earlier that the letter is a fake, but Mannix reads it with the same reverence as if it were real. This contrasts America's dream of equality with the brutal hatefulness of the film that precedes it. Tarantino's film critiques American ideals as a sham, but also something that his people still wish to believe in as a fantasy.